Okay, I'm back. I'll just wait another minute or two. Sorry for those little technical difficulties. I'm over here in Oman trying to see if some more people would join, so I'll just wait another minute or two. Thanks for rejoining me or joining me for the first time. Thanks again, ladies. I hope everyone is doing well wherever you are. I'm here in Oman. Hi, Haley. I made it back. Hopefully you all can see the description and find me. So I'm just going to wait another minute. I know here as a teacher in Oman we have a 10-minute grace rule, so I think I just made it to class on time to the live. It's now 5:10 p.m. where I am. And I know it's just after 9, so maybe just go grab your cup of coffee. We'll make this a conversation, have some fun, hopefully, inshallah, that we say. All right. So I'm just going to wait another minute and hopefully people can find the chat. Oh, so sweet. Hi, Haley. While I wait for people to join, before I dig into a little bit about my background, who I am, and how I made it all the way 7,000 miles from Detroit to Oman, I just want to take a quick minute to shout out Miss Woods and say that I really appreciate you giving your community, giving us here in your community this platform. You know, of everything that's happening back home, being an expat has definitely been disheartening. Watching what's going on back at home and not really being able to really do my part from abroad. So I just want to say to all of those watching, or to those who will watch later on, that I want to thank you for showing what an ally really is. You know, giving us brown people an opportunity to really have our voices be heard. So really excited for that. And I wanted to say thank you and we appreciate you. Okay, so I guess, oh, look at that. This number is popping on up. Fun times. Curious to see where everybody is tuning in from. Like I said, it's 5 p.m. here in Oman. I would love to see some dialogue going on. Hi, Danny. How are you? I see a couple people that I know joining the chat. Just waiting another minute or so since I had all those technical difficulties watching from Australia. Hello, down under. Rebecca. Hey, what up, though? From Detroit, my hometown. Shar, thanks for joining. Tracy is joining. This is exciting. I never go live on my personal page, so I'm really excited to be here this evening. Like I said, it's 5 o'clock in Oman. This evening, my time, just to share a little bit about who I am, where I'm from, and how I ended up teaching in 2 countries for the past decade, as well as studying abroad. I actually spent a year studying in Germany, and I did an internship in South Africa. So, 313 Detroit, what up, though? Ethiopia, yay. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 9 a.m. So hopefully you got your cup of coffee, waking up. I just took me a little short cat nap, so the time difference, 8 hours. But yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about how I came to be an expat for the past decade. And, some of my experiences traveling as a Black woman solo around the world. And as well as a little bit of the juicy stuff. I know you guys are probably wondering with me living abroad for the amount of time that I have, like what's like dating in the Middle East and in East Asia. So just want to dive into a little bit of that stuff about me. So I guess I'll go ahead and get started. I've waited a couple minutes. Like I was saying, my name is Nicole Brewer. Ireland's in the house. Hello, Sri Lanka. This is exciting. But anyway, my name is Nicole Brewer, and I am from Detroit, Michigan, 313. I saw a few Detroiters joining us, so exciting. And I have actually been living abroad for a little over 10 years, which is kind of crazy. I don't know how that happened. I'm from Detroit, and I went to the University of Michigan, go blue, and I studied communication. So you may be asking, like, oh, you study communications, you don't have an education background in teaching? No, I do not. Actually, when I first decided to come and teach abroad, it was around the last recession, ironically enough. I was like, okay, I'm just like barely 40 and I've already lived through 2 recessions, but it was during the last recession. I was laid off from my full-time job. I used to work in market research, And, be going through a layoff, I had never really had to experience not having a job. And, I had a condo. I was living in Chicago, single, living it up. And after about 5 months of being unemployed and looking for work and not getting really any hits, I decided, okay, the struggle is real. Unemployment is getting ready to run out in a month. So I need to figure something out. So I went ahead and just started applying for whatever job I can get. And I decided to apply for some teaching jobs in South Korea and as well as Japan, like all over. Because at that time, you actually didn't need to have a teaching license to teach in a lot of places abroad, but mostly in East Asia, like China or South Korea, Japan even. And so I had a couple girlfriends who actually had taught in Japan a couple years prior that I went to visit. And I loved it. Like, I actually had 3 girlfriends who were all living in Japan at the same time. Talk about divine intervention. So I went to visit them, me and my girlfriend Erica, and I loved it. So in the back of my mind, I told myself, Nicole, you can do this. You love to travel. This will be a cool experience to have for a year or so until the economy gets better in the U.S. And a decade later, I'm still gone. So, that wasn't the plan. It wasn't my master plan. I said, I'll teach in South Korea for 1 or 2 years, and then I'll go back once things gets better. But I fell in love with living abroad and teaching. I never expected for me to be gone for a decade, with really contemplating like never coming back to the U.S. to live because I just love this expat lifestyle. So, I was in South Korea for 3.5 years, give or take. And like I said, when I first went to Korea, I didn't have any teaching experience. And why I feel like South Korea was the best location for me to start my ESL, English as a second language career, is because like I was teaching in elementary school for 2 years, and then I moved on to high school for my last year and a half. And when you teach, especially in the public school system, I taught with EPIC, the English program in Korea. I see some people on here actually taught in Korea as well. But so with me teaching with the EPIC program, you have a co-teacher in the classroom with you, which really made that transition easier for me as a newbie to the field. And I also worked on getting my TEFL certificate while I was teaching. Actually, I started it during the orientation period. But anyway, I was already in Korea by the time I got my TEFL. So I was blessed to be able to get over there before having my TEFL and then getting the TEFL certificate while I was there. So with that being the case, I had a blast in South Korea. Like I miss it. Honestly, I see some of my friends and some of the other people that are in SoCo, we call it SoCo for short, who are still there or some who left and went back. And I'm like, man, Korea was like an awesome place because I met the most amazing people. I was able to travel throughout East Asia. I went to the Philippines, Thailand, pretty much, all over. And so, I had a great time in South Korea. And after a few years of being there, me being like a Gemini, my birthday just passed a few days ago, being kind of restless, I was looking for a new experience, something different. So I decided that I'll look into maybe going somewhere else next. I was looking into Dubai, into the desert, UAE, and I happened upon finding some opportunities in Oman. At that time, over a decade ago, I didn't know where Oman was. So maybe like many of you, I had to look it up on a map. Now it's becoming more, well known, especially more people know about Dubai. And I'm only about 5-hour drive from Dubai. So, I looked it up and I saw opportunity to teach at a small college here. And almost 6 years later, I'm still here. I don't know how that happened. Truth, like I said, that wasn't my plan, but I am having a ball. Like seriously, living in South Korea, living in Oman, I've had some amazing opportunities to travel and see the world. And I met amazing people all throughout my travels. So here I am, still in the Middle East. It's interesting because my first year in Oman, I saved up. Like my plan was I wanted to go to grad school. Like I said, I love to travel and I wanted to go to school in Europe. So I was in Oman only for a year, my first year here. I taught ironically, at the same college I'm at now. I taught here for a year, saved up money, And then I decided to go to Germany. So I went to grad school for a year. And that was an interesting experience, And when I went and got my master's, it was actually in international humanitarian aid, because at that point I told myself I'm going to get into nonprofit work and, work for an NGO. And so that was the program. It was all in English program I did in Germany. However, the way that it works is called the Network on Humanitarian Aid. I'll definitely share in the comments later with you all a little bit about that program. But it was an Erasmus program. So with me applying to that program, it's a network of universities throughout Europe. So like if I was fluent in French, or if I was fluent in, where were the other locations? Spanish, they had partner universities throughout Europe that you can actually go and study at. But for me, I wasn't fluent in any of those. I have a little bit of French, parlez-vous français, but not enough to study for a master's degree. So, I decided to apply for both of my terms in Germany because I knew that that program was fully in English. So, it was an amazing opportunity. We had lecturers coming from the Red Cross and, different organizations speaking to us. And it was intensive because, like I said, it was a master's program that I finished in just a little over a year. So I was there full time. So I was grateful because what happened was Oman was supposed to just be a little hop on my list of expat destinations. And so I went to grad school in Germany for a year. And then I did a 3-month internship in South Africa in Cape Town. Because with this dual master's program, the way it works is everyone has to do an internship at a nonprofit. So for me, I wanted to go to Cape Town. Why not? Right? And that was one of the sister universities for the program I did in Germany. So I did my 3-month internship in Cape Town, had a blast there as well. But, obviously I was an intern and I was doing research for my master's as well, because my master's in international humanitarian aid, the internship that I did in Cape Town, actually, I was working in the communications department of a nonprofit called Sonke Gender Justice Institute. So, dealing with domestic violence, abuse, and I was doing research about that particular topic for my master's. So on top of working part-time there, I was part of one of the universities there in Cape Town, in the Western Cape. And so I did interviews. I went to 10 different NGOs and spoke with people on the ground at those NGOs and put that research into my thesis. So I was busy. So, it was like Cape Town was amazing, but obviously I wasn't there just to lay on the beach and chill. I was there working on the ground, working at a nonprofit, as well as doing research. I was super busy. But, Cape Town is honestly one of my favorite places to globetrot to. South Africa in particular, I've been about 3 times now. And, maybe one day down the line, I'll live there again. But I had such an amazing time. So, like I said, my life story is so random, but I love it because it's like I said, I was in Oman a year, went to Germany for a year, and then Cape Town 3 months. And then, as luck would have it, I decided to come back to Oman after applying to hundreds of nonprofits. And, I knew that struggle of not being able to find a job, and, fear and self-doubt, starts to kick in. Like I had never worked at a nonprofit. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll go back to what I know. Let me just go back into ESL for a year or two and then keep applying while I'm teaching. That was the idea. I was a grad student. I was broke. I was in Germany and South Africa. So I needed to make some money, and I knew I could teach, and I knew, and ironically enough, it was like the college that I currently work for was hiring again. They need a new teacher. So when I applied with that particular agency, they replaced me back to where I left. So like I said, here I am 6 years later. I'm still in Oman. Was that the plan? No. But, that's where I am. So I see a couple people ask a couple questions. They say, how do you find it as a Black woman? I was going to touch upon that. It's funny you say that because that was definitely a topic that I wanted to dive into. I just wanted to give you all my backstory because I have been hopping all over the globe for the past decade. But, being a Black woman living abroad, like in South Korea, it was not without its challenges. I definitely had some challenges, but overall, Korea was a great experience. Like, I kind of almost push in the back of because I'm such a optimistic person. I remember all the positive stuff and the negative stuff I kind of buried. And I realized actually just recently I had did a blog post, like I'm a travel blogger as well, about some of my experiences living and traveling abroad. And I remembered some of the things that I experienced in my time in South Korea, like, maybe some elderly Koreans, we call them ajumas, or I just see still call them grandmas and grandpas. Like, they may not want to sit next to you on a bus, they'll scoot over, like, I don't know. But truth be told, when I think about it, they treated some of the white expats like that too. It wasn't just they just didn't like us. They didn't like foreigners, But I definitely had some experiences in South Korea that it was just like, oh, literally walking with one of my good friends, Randy. He's a Vietnamese American, and we're both tall. Like, I'm 5 foot tall, 5'10". So just imagine me and a 5'10" black woman living in South Korea. People are like, they just, whoa. They see you go like, whoa, because they had just never seen anyone like you, and they were intrigued. But sometimes some of them were just like, oh, she's scary, and I was just like, it is what it is. I'm beautiful. How about that? They're staring, they're looking at me crazy. I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't take it personal. So that's just my personality. But I know some people, we call them runners. They'll be in Korea for like 6-7 months, and they was like, this ain't it. This is not for me. So they will leave. They wouldn't stay. I stayed 3.5 years because overall I had a ball. I met some amazing people. One of my partners, my blog, I Love the Globetrot, Renee, me and her met there, and that's when we started the site, and what have you. So I wanted to document my experiences of living and traveling throughout East Asia. So, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to have some bad experiences, but the good outweigh the bad. Hence why I'm still gone. And as far as now being here in Oman, it's quite different because, like I said, that when I decided to leave South Korea, I wanted a different type of experience compared to what I was having in South Korea. I was like, okay, I'm having fun, but I kind of got bored. It was a good place. I was in my late 20s when I was there. It was a good place for partying and having a good time and meeting people, but I just wanted a different experience. And it doesn't get much more different than moving to the desert in the Middle East compared to when I was in East Asia. So, now that I'm like in my 30s, and been here for almost 7 years, it's a different type of vibe. It's a different type of scene. But overall, I love Oman. Like, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. You asked me how it is to be like a black person living in the Middle East. For me, I've never felt really discriminated or like any type of hate or anything like that. Here, like, Omanis, they be like, hello, sister. Hello, how are you today? Like, they call me sister, you know what I mean? Like, and truth be told, the culture in Oman, it's like, even though it's the Middle East, a lot of Omanis are darker than me. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of Omanis have Zanzibari and other African roots. So, like, I feel like I can relate to the people here in Oman in a sense of, like, with those African roots. But, reverse culture shock. Yes, I'll touch on that a little later. I'll definitely lock that question in my back of my head. But so for me, it's like I like Oman, but truth be told, I know part of the reason why I have been received and treated so well as a black person is because I'm African American, right? So like if I don't drive, I have a very big fear of driving in this region because it's one of the top, places where accidents happen outside of Saudi Arabia and UAE. The driving is not that great here. So I live across the road actually from my college, so it makes life easier. I take taxis a lot, right? So I'll get in a taxi. Like today, I got on my little Moroccan caftan, right? When I went to Morocco last year for my birthday. I'll get in a taxi. If I'll be wearing something like this, I'm covered. I'm respectful. A taxi driver, oh, hello, where are you from? And then as soon as I say American, that means I'm American. I'm American, I'm American. I'm a teacher. And then I'm like, oh, hello, miss, how are you? I know it's because when they hear my American accent, there is a level of respect that I get because I am an American. Now, if I went to get in a taxi with my African garb on and I was maybe Kenyan or Nigerian, like if I was African, I think my experience living in a desert will be different. And I'm just going to keep it 100 with y'all. I know that I do have a certain level of privilege as being a black American living in Oman, living in the Middle East, as opposed to what some of my African brothers and sisters might experience in their daily life. So, I do want you all to realize that, like I said, I haven't dealt with any type of racism. I mean, maybe some assumptions because I'm American and I'm single. I don't have a husband. That's a whole other story. You know, everybody wants to be in your business. Oh, no ring, no husband. Why no husband, no babies? You know, like they want to date the taxi drivers. They try to get all in your business, and you know sometimes they'll flirt with you because they think, oh, American woman, Black American woman. They think you might be, you know, maybe wife number 2 or 3. But I'm like, no, I'm not about that life. No. You know, it's like I don't have any children on purpose, and I'm not trying to be your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th wife, you know, because it happens. Like oh goodness, speaking of that brings me to a story that I was going to talk a little bit about dating, living in this region. That brings me to a story of Tinder and, you know, dating in the Middle East. I have 2 different stories that I'll dive into about that. But, you know, my first relationship that I had when I lived in Oman, I told myself, my first year in Oman, like prior to me moving to Germany, when I first moved here, I told myself that I wasn't going to date in this region. Like, I was like, the coast, Middle East, you got to be, like, I was super conservative in my mind. Like, that was the plan. You're not going to date. You're going to be single for a bit. Just get the lay of the land, right? That was the plan. And my first week in Oman, you know, my first year, some years ago, I actually, after we finished teaching our first week, we all went out to like one of the local bars, this hotel bar, and, you know, decided to celebrate. It's our first week of teaching here. Yes, a local guy. I actually, that's what I'm getting into, girl. Yes, my first experience of dating someone in the Middle East, he was an African Omani. So let me just preface that. Like, he was at the bar. He was one of the oil worker guys, right? So he was at the bar with a couple of his friends, and there's a bunch of us teachers at the bar, you know, hanging out. And we are at our table, and, you know, they somehow, like, I think somebody at our table knew one of the oil worker guys that was part of that crew. So somehow we all just kind of ended up hanging out together. And, you know, like here in Oman and the Emirates, if many of you have been to the region, you know that locals, they wear the traditional garb. Like here in Oman, the men wear dish dashes and the ladies wear abayas. And in his case, you know, they were all oil workers hanging out, you know, jeans and a t-shirt. And he's as dark as me. You know, at that point, I didn't know how many African Omanis were here. But his accent, like, he had a westernized accent because he actually had lived in Europe for a bit, you know, had traveled the world. He was very westernized. So, you know, we're talking and getting to know each other. He was very interested, so I gave him my number. And then after we started talking, I realized, you know, he told me, he was honest. He was like, you know, I'm African Omani. My mom is from Burundi. And my father is Omani, you know, so he does wear traditional garb. Obviously, he was out at the bar with his friends in that moment. So, you know, he just blended in like he could have been, you know, an African-American guy, or he could have been a guy from the UK. I didn't know and in that moment when we met. So anywho, so we dated and talked for a while. And it was interesting because, like, in his case, I would say, you know, he drank. You know, he was definitely more westernized. He wasn't like traditional praying 5 times a day. He wasn't traditional Omani. Like, there were certain things that he just kind of decided to walk away from. And, you know, and we actually, you know, started getting pretty close after several months or whatever. So it started getting more serious. And initially I was just like, I'll date and maybe it won't go anywhere. But we were together for like about 6 or 7 months and things started getting serious. And so that didn't last because obviously culture-wise, we were different. Like as westernized as he was and as cool as he was, it was weird because it's like he was still Muslim, even though he wasn't practicing like their traditional Muslim, praying 5 times a day and things like that. And he was doing haram stuff, you know, drinking and stuff like that, partying. But he was still, at the end of the day, Omani. You know, he had been divorced too, so that was a whole nother, like, he was kind of like one of the black sheeps, like, oh, you know, well, this is what he told me he was divorced. So that was the thing. Like, after a while, I started questioning things because culture-wise, I knew it was not what I should have done. And, you know, lesson learned. You know, overall, I won't take it back because I learned some valuable experiences. But we didn't work because, yes, more than race. It was more about the culture. It's like, if it's getting to the point where you're telling me that you have family, brothers and sisters, and your mom and stuff is at Muscat, and, you know, I live in Nizwa, which is about an hour and a half outside of the capital. He would go to Muscat sometimes on the weekend because he was working for the oil company in Nizwa, but then he was in Muscat, like his family. So he would go there, and then he doesn't want to answer the phone, and I would just like, you say you're divorced. Like, are you really divorced, or are you going back home to your family in Muscat? So I just started, because, like, as much as I wanted to believe and trust what he said, I'm not stupid either. I was just like, this don't feel right. So, yes, in Korea, same type of deal, girl. I see someone say, I found this in Korea. Yes, I guess stories for days when it comes on to this topic. But yeah, I definitely, had my fair share of experiences in South Korea as well. You had to deal with, maybe guys wanting to date you because you were American. They were like, ooh, America, so. No, I'm not that girl. I'm not that chick. So, I'm in South Korea. I used to be straight up with guys who are just like, if you're trying, especially some of the African guys, I was like, if you're trying to date me because you want to get a green card, I'm not the girl, because I'm not even going back to live in the States. Truth be told. So, I used to keep it all the way 100 with them about that in South Korea, as well as my time in Oman. So, like I said, that didn't work out. Culturally, it just was not meant to be. It was kind of devastating, because, like I said, we did start getting serious, and that wasn't part of my plan. And so that particular story about dating a local, like I gave you all that little hint about, I was like, some of my dating experiences living in abroad. I actually, like I said, I'm a travel blogger as well, and I was featured in Cosmo. It's so funny, because I actually got the story right here. I got my heart broken was the title of the Cosmo article about 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, dang, when I told the editor my story, I didn't know that was going to be the title of the article. Like, okay. But, of course it was devastating just dealing with, but I knew better. So I'm not going to say play victim or anything like that. Like I said, I believe he was divorced. I don't know. Maybe he was married. But so anyway, that particular story got me featured in Cosmo because I wrote about it on my blog. And it was in an Essence magazine article a year later as well, like international. People love to hear about dating. What is it like living and dating abroad? So, but that story actually landed me on 2 features. So I'm like, well, it didn't work out, but thanks, boo, because I was in Cosmo. I appreciate that. But such is life, you live and learn, you move on, to bigger and better things. And so, another dating story, being here in a region, we were talking about, how some people might want you to be the second, third wife or whatever. Like, I was on Tinder some years ago, and I was, I'm not interested in dating a local again. I said, been there, done that, won't do it again. But anywho, so I was on Tinder, and I started talking to, I used to call him, if anybody who's on here that knows me from Facebook, I used to call him Mr. PhD. I was like, oh, I'm going out, I'm talking to Mr. PhD. We were talking for over a year on Tinder. Like, we had never met in person, because I'm here in Oman and he was in Abu Dhabi. And he was working on his PhD. And, I'm working full time. And I never had made a chance to get to Abu Dhabi to meet him. So when we finally did go on a date, it was like, well, this is going to be interesting. Like, I know so much about him. He seems so cool. We've been talking for a while. He's educated. He was African. He was Nigerian, I think. I think he was Nigerian. But, so we finally, and I'm a travel blogger. So when I did go to Abu Dhabi, I was doing it up. Like, I stayed at a nice 5-star resort, and I was able to get like a restaurant review. So I remember this, clearly, because he didn't even have to pay for the dinner. Like, I got a restaurant review at the Emirates Palace, like at the Haksan. Yeah, it was an Asian restaurant at Haksan. So he met me there, and we were having a nice meal, and everything seemed to be going okay. Like, he seemed cool, but it was just like, how you're talking to someone on Tinder and you really get to know them. Like, we moved from Tinder to WhatsApp, and we're just chatting like all the time. So I felt like I really knew him. But it wasn't until in person that certain things came out, and I was just like, oh, interesting. You're of African descent. And he basically was like, well, I don't feel that the average man will only be with one woman. Like, he was like, my father, he has 3 wives. And I was just like, your father must be, he must be rich, because I know, and his father was Muslim. And I was like, I know how it works. If you have 3 or 4 wives, you have to be able to provide for them. And I was like, oh, so in the back of my mind, I'm like, here we go again, another Muslim. Even though he was African, he wasn't Omani, he wasn't a local. But it was like, Nicole, you got to do better. It's like, this is it, what I mean? So, he's basically telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to have more than one wife, and like trying to feel me out and see if that's something I might be interested in. I was just like, I'm not that girl. Like I said before, I'm not about that life. So dating in the Middle East is not without its challenges. I'll come back to that, between dating an African Omani and then dating an African who wasn't Omani. Similar experience as far as like cultural clash and differences. I'm like, that's beautiful that you are upfront with me and you're telling me like I'm going to probably have more than one woman in my life. But I'm not about that. And I've had girls be like, girl, you better go on ahead and get you a rich home. No, no, that's not me. I mean, I'm actually not even like big on marriage. Like that's just always been my background. So I'm just like, I date. And we'll see, like, if it comes to that, great. But I'm not going to settle and be somebody's second or third wife just to be taken care of. That's not me. So, yes, sad that you can have more than one husband. Ain't that the truth, Eve? Hey, girl. But, right. That'd be a different scenario if I was able to dibble and dabble and do what I want to do. But no, so, yeah, I think that's kind of just, like, cultural-wise here. So it's like, yeah, maybe moving forward, I need to try to find me someone who's another expat, another American. But, truth be told, it's hard. Like, anybody who has lived abroad and worked in South Korea, worked in even Dubai, UAE. I'm great, bless my friends who have found their significant other while living abroad, because I do know people who, yes, Eve, right? That's what I'm talking about. My girlfriend Eve is on here. She has a Korean husband, see? So it can happen, you know what I mean? Like, you can definitely find your boo while living abroad. I am still single, on the other hand. I guess somebody I'm talking to now, but that's a whole nother story. We're doing a long distance thing, so I'm not going to say it's not complicated. But yeah, it definitely has its challenges of living abroad, trying to date and meet someone. Like, you deal with cultural differences, you deal with different type of clashes. So that's been my experience. I haven't had the best, but I live and learn, and I've been having a blast regardless. Single and all, dating, traveling the world, and just blogging about my experiences as well on I Love the Globetrot. So I'm very grateful. Like, if anybody has any questions about how to get into teaching abroad, that's something that I wrote a book on it. I actually wrote a book on that particular topic because I would get asked the question. I've been doing it for a decade. So people are like, you must love it. How did you get into this? What type of program should I do? Where should I go? So I used to get so many inbox messages about it. I just decided I'm going to write a book, and I interviewed about 10 expats and talked about their experiences in addition to my experiences. So, yes, even when you speak the same language, ain't that the truth? But I've been having, it's definitely hard being abroad and at home. And that's what I tell my girlfriends back home. They're like, oh, I say the struggle was real when I lived in Chicago, when I had my market research job, and the struggle is real dating and living abroad. Like, you're going to deal with challenges regardless. You just got to feel people out and make it do what it do. So I'll give it time, but like I said, I don't, I'm grateful because my family has never given me pressure about moving back to the States and finding a husband or trying to find someone abroad. My mom is she's so real. She's just like, I know it's a struggle. I know it's hard out there for you young girls. That's what she said. I know it's hard out there for you all. And she was like, I'm just happy that you're living your life and you're having a blast. Like, she's at the point where she doesn't even ask me about if I'm going back to the States, because she was like, why would you? She's like, you are living the dream. I've traveled to almost 50 countries in my time of living abroad, going all throughout the Middle East. And now I'm a travel blogger as well, so I write about, hotels and restaurants, doing reviews. So, like my motto always tell people, I'm an English teacher by day and a travel blogger by night. So I have definitely tried to make the most of my experience. Someone said, what is the name of your book? I'm ready to quit corporate and teach online. Yes, do it, Jamie. My book is it's called How to Land an English Teaching Job Abroad. Yeah, so, because that's the thing, especially right now. I mean, looking at the current administration, y'all, the struggle, get out. Get out if you can. I wrote my book is actually 3 years old. So I remember I in my mind when I was writing it, I told myself, I was like, you should probably incorporate like get out, or because I felt in my heart at back then, like, I was like, Trump is in the office and y'all need to go. So now it's like, I've been talking about it more because people have been asking me about it. It's just like, yes, consider it, teaching English online, get out if you can after COVID, obviously. And that's a whole nother topic I can touch on too. Like being here in Oman, it's definitely been, it's been an experience. This lifestyle is not for the faint-hearted. Obviously, like I said, you got to deal with dating, you got to deal with, different culture, as far as coworkers is concerned. My coworkers are great though. I'm very grateful for that. And my students are lovely. But, this is today's the June 22nd. So usually, like looking back on my memories the past few days, like last year, this time is when I land back home. I actually land back in the States. So with COVID, it's like, well, some people were able to book repatriation flights if they wanted to leave and go back home. But for me, I'm like, I live here. Like, it's not a repatriation flight. It's not me going back to the States and staying. If I were to try to get back home this summer, I don't know if I would be able to get back in the country. And I'm like, this is my livelihood. Like I said, I've been here 6 years. So I decided I'm not going to take that chance of flying back to the States this summer. I decided I'm going to stay in Oman. And, it's me as a travel blogger. It's just like, my birthday just passed. I was supposed to be in Mozambique, land on the beach. I was like, oh, voila. We say here in Oman, So it's definitely, like I said, think about if you were stuck, like if you could not leave your current country. It's not an easy time to be in, but like I said, I wouldn't give it up for the world because I do enjoy being an expat living abroad. I've never looked back since leaving home. That's how I feel, girl. Like, honestly, what did I say? Oh, I'm going to go and live in South Korea for 1 or 2 years and come back. And a decade later, I'm still gone. Such is life. That was not my plan, but what is that saying? How does that saying go? Man plans and God laughs. That wasn't my plan, but alhamdulillah, I'm living a very good life. So I'm very grateful for that. And I need to get out of here. It's getting scary. It's so scary. Yes. And that's the thing. It's just like, I feel safe here in Oman. Like, even though today we did have our biggest jump as far as COVID cases is concerned, we had 1,600 cases today. And Oman is thank you, happy belated birthday. Oman is a small country. We only have a population of between 4 to 5 million people for the whole country. Oman is itty bitty. Think about that. That's like New York is twice that size in just that particular place. So yeah, we have a population of 5 million and we have 1,600 cases today of COVID. So, we have been in lockdown for some time because, we had Ramadan back just over a month ago. And, I was really scared to see what the numbers were going to be like being here in the Middle East and knowing how important Ramadan is and the different holidays. People always travel and go see their family. So like Muscat, which is the capital, I think it's like 500,000 people in Muscat alone, or maybe closer to 1 million. But Muscat being the capital, they were on their own separate lockdown compared to the rest of the country. Like we could not go into, or they couldn't leave out of Muscat. And so they've actually opened the borders, but I don't feel comfortable going out with COVID. I'm like, okay, we got to get this under wraps. So, I've been staying here in Nizwa. I did a little local staycation at a lovely resort. It's called Alila. It's like a 5-star resort. I did a staycation there last weekend for my birthday. And, I felt comfortable going there as opposed to, trying to go to Muscat, or obviously we can't leave Oman. The borders are still closed. It's been about 3 months now. And we're still waiting for them to open the airports other than the repatriation flights. So, I did the small little staycation at Alila, which was beautiful. And I felt comfortable with COVID because they took super extra precautions when it comes to checking in. Like we had our distance, everyone had their mask on. And I felt grateful because it was like, okay, this is a nice place. I saw how I was actually like, let me just give you all a picture. Like Alila is this beautiful 5-star resort that's on this mountain, which is about an hour from where I live in Nizwa, called Jabal Akhdar. They call it the Green Mountain. And so the resort is on top of this mountain. So that's the beauty of going to a place like that, because when a mountain is cooler than where I live down in the desert, like it's cooler as you go up the elevation. So, Jabal Akhdar is a very popular tourist location, and Omanis love to go there in the summer. And now so many of us expats are here. We want to go there in the summer too to cool off. So I was grateful because I was supposed to have been staying at the Alila on my birthday, June 18th. And then we got an alert letting us know that Jabal Akbar, Salalah, and a few other very popular tourist locations was going to be re-locked down because of COVID. The numbers have been increasing. So, there's, like I said, most of the cases are in Muscat, but they're trying to contain the spread. So they decided these tourist locations, we're going to close those off because we want to make sure that those locals there don't get sick. In my case, I was like, well, I live in this, I'm not coming from Muscat. I know I haven't been sick. And I was grateful because, like I said, being a travel blogger, I had reached out to the marketing team about my stay. They actually hooked me up with a nice little, media rate, little blogger discount. It wasn't free, but they hooked me up. So I had to move my stay up a week because if I had went, I couldn't get up there on my birthday. As of, I think, June 13th. Yeah, it was that Saturday. As of June 13th, they had decided to close off Alila, that particular region, Jabal Akbar, and the other tourist locations until July 3rd. They'll give us another update. But like I said, when I heard those numbers were at 1,600 today, I was like, well, it looked like I might be in Nizzle for the rest of the summer because I'm not sure if they're going to open back up. I'm not exactly sure. But, I appreciate, so I ended up moving my stay up the week prior to my birthday so that I can actually get in there and do my stay. Sorry, I'm just trying to read these comments. My cousin went to college, a lawyer, has the bar. Yeah, see, so that's the thing. You're right. You teaching abroad, it just opens up so many opportunities. So I'm just really grateful to be here and living this lifestyle. I'm trying to think, what else did I want to touch on? I'm trying to see if I missed any questions because I've been just blabbing off the mouth. Some people, how has living overseas changed your perspective about America? Ooh, very good question. Yes. This is the first time I actually had to just pause and just think about it. It's like, I'm a Black American, right? And like I said before, for those who join later, I thank Haley so much for giving us this opportunity to just speak our piece and for you guys to really see our heart and see how we feel about, being expats and traveling the world and different things. And so I won't say that my perception has particularly changed a ton. For me, I love America. I love being American. I love having a blue passport. Don't get me wrong. But now from the outside looking in, it's been a bit of a challenge because, I think for me, I just want to hopefully, when I share my story, like being a blogger and having all these great opportunities and letting people see another opportunity that they can have outside of the States, I'm just appreciative that I've been able to show people another way, show people that you don't have to be about that white picket fence and trying to, live the American dream, because was that really our dream? Like for me, like I said, that was never my dream. I was always that young, when I was 16, 17, when I was in high school, I was that young cynical girl who was like, I'm probably never going to get married and have babies, and 50% of marriages end in divorce. And I was always just like, wise beyond my years when it comes to certain things. So I never really saw myself like, I didn't want that American dream. So at that time, I didn't know I was going to be traveling the world for a decade, but here we are. So, my perspective about America is like, do better, y'all, because I my family's there, my friends are there. I really want for things to get better, but look who we got as president. Me traveling the world and people hear my accent, oh, American. Like the last couple of years, people would be like, oh, you're from America. And it would kind of give me like, oh, like that. You guys have Trump as president. Like, I just remember, like, I've gotten a couple times when I went to Zanzibar. And I think I was there just after Trump was elected president. People were just like, what did you guys do? I was like, I didn't do it. I didn't vote for him. So it's like, it's just so interesting that the things that people are saying, like in the past 4 or 5 years, it's just like, yeah, we miss Obama. I've had Omanis literally tell me that, like when I'm in a taxi, like I said, I don't drive. When I'm in a taxi, we miss Obama. I'm like, we miss him too, y'all. Like, what can we do? What can we do? So it's definitely been like just kind of surreal, like having that type of experience, talking about we miss y'all old president. Like people see we all struggling, y'all. Because, obviously America has always been that land of the free, and everybody always looks up to like, the American government, but now they're like, this ain't it. So, um, are your chats with other expats on YouTube? Well, no, actually, for when someone was asking earlier about my book, I had did some interviews with some people to feature them in my book about their experiences teaching abroad. But I have, like I said, being a blogger, I've been very grateful for the opportunities that I've brought. I've personally been on interviews with other expats and on other like podcasts and things like that. So, if you're interested, I'll definitely go back through these comments later and try to come back and respond about that. Just want to see if I missed any questions. But I'm trying to think. It's funny as a Canadian American. Yes, right. So yeah, my response when they mentioned Trump, I'm like, I'm from Canada. I need to say I'm from up north, so I can just stop having that conversation because I'm tired, y'all. The struggle is real. It really is. So yeah, I'm trying to think what other things that I want to talk about. I don't know if anyone has any other questions. I know it's almost about that hour, but I did come late, so I'm trying to push it to the end, but I don't want to get cut off. But yeah, so like I said, I've lived in several different countries and it's been phenomenal. I wouldn't trade this lifestyle for the world. I don't know if you guys see, like behind me, I got my little vision board back here. You guys can see, but like on my vision board, some of the things that I have on there, trying to be an influencer in Oman, game changer, things like that. And, I see myself probably 9 times out of 10 retiring abroad. Like I don't know how much longer I'm going to necessarily be an ESL teacher, but I'm trying to make some moves. Like I was saying back here on my vision board, one of my goals is to open a hostel abroad. Like I don't see myself going back to the States to live. Like hopefully maybe in Portugal or even in Ghana. Time will tell. And I know. Yeah, that's my plan. Like, I love living abroad. I love the expat lifestyle. If I find a husband, great. If I don't, great. Whatever. I'm going to continue to do me and live. Like I said, it hasn't been a priority for me. But if it happens, I may be more open to it compared to my 16-year-old self. But it hasn't been like, I'll live. I'll be all right. So how did you find an ESL program that was safe? Research, social media. I know, for me, like I said, I did a lot of research and I wrote about that in my book a few years ago to help people. But I was all about using my social networks, when I did the EPIC program, because like I said, I knew people who had taught in South Korea. So I was very grateful. Who taught in Japan before I decided to move to South Korea. So I talked to people. Yes, Haley, I will talk to you about that hostel. But yeah, so I talked to people and, I reached out on social media, in different groups and stuff like that. Definitely here in Girls Love Travel, I'm sure, I'm definitely going to try to be more vocal, when I see people asking that question, try to chime in. But yeah, I did a lot of research. I used to work in market research before teaching, so I knew you ask questions, you try to get down to the nitty gritty and find out about experiences. But like I said, I did talk about several, like tons of different programs throughout East Asia and all over. I tried to do research and just compile it all in one place. So to try to save people that legwork, since I would get that question a lot. Do you mean a teaching gig or training program? No, teaching. For me, I'm an ESL, English as a second language teacher. I've been doing it for the past 10 years. And I think she means as far as because okay, for example, I know in South Korea and same in China, they have different types of teaching programs where, for me, I taught with EPIC, the English program in Korea, which is actually, the government schools. So like I said, I taught 2 years in elementary, then I taught 1.5 years in high school. So that was through the government program, EPIC, but I had to apply through an agency. So you have to be careful, making sure you're vetting these agencies and asking the questions, are they going to cover your accommodation? Are they going to cover your relocation? Things of that nature. So you have to make sure you ask the questions that will they cover family visas if you have kids or a husband? These are the type of things that you need to be asking when you start applying to agencies and seeing what programs are out there. So I was lucky. Like for me, my 3.5 years in Korea, I was always with a government program with Epic. I know people who came in and they taught with Epic, and then some people they taught with like some of the Hagwons they call them in Korea. Hagwon is an academy, so they're like private academies. Like this kids, the elementary school kids, they'll go to school during the day and be with me, and then in the evening they'll have a tutor at the Hagwon or the academy. So, they have different type of programs out there. You definitely got to make sure it's legit. Like I said, I know people who were runners and who didn't stay because their agency or their particular academy or whoever they work for, it was a nightmare. For me, I was blessed because I always taught in a public school. I was paid on time. I never had to worry about not getting paid. I know even here in Oman, some people have had issues with that. So again, now that I'm teaching in Oman, I'm working for a smaller college. It's called the College of Applied Science, CAS. And they have several different colleges, networks here in Oman. So, it was a reliable program, that I taught with as opposed to like a smaller academy or, Hagwon type of situation. They have those, but they're not as common here in Oman compared to like in South Korea. So yeah, a teacher trainer and Epic recruits from us. Oh, okay, so that's great. So someone's here. They were saying that they're a teacher trainer and Epic recruits from them. So I didn't know that. So that's great. So yeah, definitely just have to do your research. Use social media to your advantage. Pick up books like the one that I wrote, and try to read and follow people who have done this because like I said, the will ain't broken. Like for me, I was grateful because I knew people who had taught in Japan. And one of my girlfriends, I was initially looking into Japan when I first decided to teach abroad, but I ended up researching, looking into Korea. And, my girlfriend, she knew some people who had taught in Korea, so she linked me up with them. And then after talking to them, I just felt like Korea may be the better fit. And, I'm glad that I went with it. JET, exactly. And that's something else I talk about in the book as well, the JET program. One of my girlfriends that was teaching in Japan, she was with JET, the English teaching program in Japan. And then another girlfriend, she was with an academy. So, and their experiences were different. So you just have to do your research and make sure that it's a reliable, agency and things of that nature. So, yeah. Let's see. Any other questions, ladies? I don't know how much more time I have before this tries to cut me off. I know I did join late. Yes, I made the right choice. Thank you. Or just say shukran here in Oman. So, yeah, so, I'll just touch a little bit more about my experience here in Oman. Thank you, Haley, for sharing the blog. But yeah, I'll touch a little bit more about my experience here in Oman before I wrap this up. But like I said, I've been teaching at a small college here, and I think you guys might be interested to know, like, it's so interesting because my students, here at the colleges, I'll say about 97% of the student population is locals or Omanis. At the colleges, there's not many expats going here. Like, there's a couple of Pakistani students. But so as college students, my kids actually are getting a paycheck to come to school. And it's so interesting. It's like, you guys are literally getting paid to come to class. Like, as a teacher, I have to take attendance because if they are absent more than 20% of the time, then they'll get kicked out of the college. It's just like, you got to be here. You're getting money to be here. It's not like when we were in college, you were just like, oh, I'm going to skip this lecture. So they can skip lectures, but they have to be careful. So, you definitely have students who are coming to class who may not necessarily want to be there, but they're there because they want to get that check, And then you have really hardworking students who are just like, yes, I want to go study in USA or I want to go study in Europe. Just like you have such a range of the students. So it's quite interesting, And also something that was a challenge for me, or it was just different. It was just like, okay, culture, this is so different. Which reminds me, there was a question about reverse culture shock. I just remembered I want to get back to that. But culture-wise, it was like when I first came to teach at the college here in Oman, my students all throughout primary and in high school, they were always at all boys schools or all girls schools. Like, it's a Muslim culture. So, they didn't go to school together until they got to the college level. So just imagine, like, you're in a classroom of like 25 students and Like 20 of them are girls and 5 are boys. And this is their first time like interacting with a boy outside of their family. This is like really their first integration of like being in a classroom around the opposite sex. So it was like, they were college kids. It was like, for me, when I taught in South Korea, my last year there, I was in a high school. That really prepared me because my babies, they're like little high school kids, when they're in the classroom together. So, it was quite interesting because with a diverse classroom of boys and girls, and that's their first time having that experience, we literally have the classroom set up where there's an interest, a separate interest for the boys and a separate interest for the girls. So they come in separate hallways. Like they can't touch, that anybody outside your family that's a male, technically you're not even supposed to be speaking to. So by the time they get to college level, they're so like nervous and it's weird. Like I've had classrooms where when they have just came into the college their first year, and, as a teacher, I move around. This is what we do. I'm going to walk to the back of the class. I'm going to go help the girls, help the boys. I remember my first year here, I was so confused because I had a girl who basically came and talked to me. And she was like, teacher, I don't feel comfortable when you go and on the side of the classroom and talk to the boys because I have to look over there and I see you and I don't want to see the boys. Like they're scary. And I'm like, what? So you don't want me to move around my own classroom? So that took some getting used to. Like now I feel like I don't really come across that many students who are that shy, but that's just one example of like culture wise how it's so different being here teaching in the Omani school compared to like when I was in South Korea. You didn't have to deal with that. We were singing K-pop songs and American hip hop, like different songs in the classroom. Like it was just a totally different experience being in the classroom in South Korea compared to being in the classroom in Oman. So yeah, that's like teaching in East Asia compared to teaching in the Middle East. So yeah. Let's see. Any teaching tips for younger kids? Ooh, that's a good question. For me, like I like being in Oman now because, like I said, even though I'm in a college level and like I said, they're a little immature. It's still young adults, so it's much easier this experience. Like that's probably the reason I've stayed longer too. Teaching in the college with the college kids as opposed to like teaching in South Korea with elementary school kids. Those first 2 years, woo, the struggle. You have to have energy. It's like it's a different ball game teaching the small kids as opposed to working with young adults. Having the energy and singing songs, and there was a lot of singing involved. I remember that in South Korea. So you definitely have to have that type of personality to feel comfortable doing that. But for me, I was grateful because, like I said, that was my first experience in the classroom with a co-teacher. So that person who had all of this experience, and obviously they were there to speak in Korean, I was there to be more of a language teacher. So doing more of speaking, so much of the singing and having small conversations one-on-one and in groups. So it was a lot of that going on in the classroom in South Korea compared to now being at a college and teaching grammar and just having, teaching academic writing, So it's a different ball game. And I obviously, like I said, I'm more adept to working with the young adults compared to the young babies. Definitely a different experience. And someone earlier had a question. I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up soon. I'm almost running out of time. The last question I'll address was about reverse culture shock. Yes, that is real. Like for me, living in 2 countries that I feel are some of the safest countries you can actually live in. Like people are like, oh, you live in the Middle East, you feel safe there. I'm like, yeah, Oman is actually one of the safest countries in the world. People don't, tiny little country, they're all about respect. South Korea, you can literally leave your cell phone on the table at the bar and then go back tomorrow and the bar owner will give you your phone back. Like literally, I know people who have done that. They lost cell phones. Like they're the sweetest people. If you're lost, somebody will literally walk you to your destination, in South Korea. And even in Oman, they're very sweet and like very respectful culture. So it's definitely a big reverse culture shock when I go home in the summer because it's like, like I said, I'm from Detroit. I'm a big city girl. So I know my way around. And I used to live in the south side of Chicago before I moved abroad. So I know I have a tough skin. But it's like you kind of let your guard down when you've been living in like small, towns, Nizwa, small little town I live here in the desert, as opposed to when I go back home to the big city. It's like I have to get my big city girl swag on. You know what I mean? Like I have to turn it back on. So it's like I'm always going to watch my back. I always, but it's just a different level of like not keeping your guard down when you go back home, and just certain things that it's like I hardly ever turn my TV on here because most of it's in Arabic. You have English channels, but for me, it's like when I go back home, I'm mentally and physically exhausted of like the things that I see happening, seeing. Whew, I don't even want to get into like everything that's happening back home, but it's a lot. It's heavy. Like even here, I've been exhausted. I'm an empath, so I definitely feel that energy. So it's definitely a bit of reverse culture shock when I go back home compared to like my experience living here in the desert and even in South Korea. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. So yeah. How you keep your hair? So what I had, girl, yes, the hair question. I the struggle now with COVID. There is a salon that I used to go to in Muscat, but I can't go to the salon now. Like the salons are still closed here, and I wouldn't feel comfortable going anyway with COVID. So I had to do my own hair. I had to get courageous and try to do it. But yeah, I did have options. Like one of my good girlfriends and one of my South African girlfriends would do my hair for me, but now with keeping social distance, I had to figure it out on my own. So, we are slowly opening back up. But some of the non-essential shops are back open. Some of the clothing shops that had been closed for months, they literally just opened within the past week. But a lot of non-essential places are still closed here, like beauty salons, and I haven't had a manicure and pedicure in ages, and I'll be all right. I'll make it do. So when you return home, do you mentor the young people about living abroad? It's funny you say that because actually I have been, even before I come home, like being a teacher, being an educator, I've definitely spoken on some panels. Even just over a year ago, I did. Actually, it was about 2 years now. Like my alma mater, University of Michigan, I did like an online panel about teaching abroad to the students, to the college students that were interested in teaching abroad, and I've been on several other panels. I haven't, like when I go back to Atlanta, I'm only there for like such a short, well, like I said, I'm from Detroit, but my family, they're in Georgia, they're in Atlanta. So usually when I go home in the summer, I'm going to see my mom and my sisters in Georgia. So when I go home in the summer, usually the kids, they're off on summer vacation. Like my sister, she's actually a teacher as well in Atlanta. So I have visited her school once, like when I got home just before the semester ended. But usually, depending on when I have my break, it's kind of hard to really get into the community with the kids because they're off on summer break. But I do like that idea. That would be awesome because, like I said, I do. I have so many goals. Like I said, my little vision board back here is like I have the house to go, and that was something that I really wanted to do as well. It's just like asked to speak on a board of a NGO as well, like a nonprofit. About opportunities to study abroad. So that's something that I've been in talks with a good friend of mine. And, that was actually, it was ironic because like he literally reached out to me. It was like, you want to be on a board of my nonprofit that I'm starting? And I was just like, yo, like you're in my head. How did you know that was something I wanted to do anyway? So divine intervention, just being in those circles of people who are really trying to make a difference. So inshallah, as we say here, God willing, we can get that off the ground. But that's something that I'm really, as an educator and as a humanitarian at heart, like I said, my master's is in international humanitarian aid. So I do want to get more into nonprofit work and mentoring youth. So if anybody else want to connect on that level, definitely comment and let me know. But yeah, so I think I may have actually gone over my hour. I'm surprised that it hasn't disconnected. I know I had lost a few minutes in the beginning. But if no one has any other questions, I think I'm going to get ready to wrap it up because, like I said, it is just after 6 here in Oman and it's almost dinner time. I know it's still morning for you guys, but this has been really fun. I've enjoyed chatting with you all. And like I said, I'm going to end it how I started it, just thanking Haley again for being such a great ally and giving us the opportunity to tell our stories, to share our experiences as, Black women traveling in the world. So yeah, I really appreciate you all for this and you know, this has been therapeutic for me as well because, like I said, I'm single and I'm an expat and I'm living alone. So this has been great to be able to have this dialogue with you ladies. And if you have any questions, like I shared, you can reach me on Instagram at I Love the Globetrot. And you all take care. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best.